Hi, good afternoon. This is Paul Chapeau at the Georgia State Capitol, and I'm here with Tanya Ditty, the State Director for the Concerned Women for America. How are you this afternoon?
Doing fantastic. It's good to be here.
Well, we've got some questions for you. We've heard the speakers today on the NOM platform, and the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is Georgia's already got a state constitutional amendment on gay marriage. So what was the point of today's rally, in your opinion?
Well, the point is to bring like-minded men and women and organizations together to say not just what happens what happens in each of the states impacts all of us. So we're here to say, just as Georgians and as Americans, that we support traditional marriage in America. So across the country, we're just here to support each other across the country to say traditional marriage counts in this country.
Fair enough, and we've heard a lot today about the King family legacy, and of course we're standing on sacred ground here in Atlanta, of course, with this being Martin Luther King's home. You know, it's quite well known that Coretta Scott King was very vociferous and outspoken about her support for the LGBT community, and of course gay marriage. What do you have to say about invoking the King family legacy when it's fairly known that there is division on this subject?
Well, I think you might want to ask their family members. I am not here to speak out on against Coretta Scott King today and what her feelings are. I'm here today to say that as an American and as a Georgian, I'm here to support traditional marriage. I don't want to get in that battle with their family. Whatever, if that was her viewpoint in America, she's allowed to have that viewpoint, and so we support that. But I'm not here to try to tie what was said today from the speakers that support traditional marriage against the Kings. That's her viewpoint, and she's allowed to have it.
Well, very true. And you know, expounding on that point, let me ask you, the whole topic and the repetition that we heard today, the right to vote on marriage. Do you think that this, again, invoking the King family legacy is what we heard over and over again, do you think that Martin Luther King himself would have supported voting on civil rights? Do you think Georgians should have been given the right to vote on racial equality here in Georgia?
Well, once again, I think what was said today is that we follow in the example of Martin Luther King, that he had a right to come and speak today, and that we have a right to come and speak, and that people have a right to have their viewpoints, and we have a right just to speak out and say that traditional marriage counts. Understood,
but to answer my question, do you believe that fellow citizens have the right to vote on another citizen's civil rights? And I say that because the Supreme Court has ruled time and time again that marriage is a fundamental civil right. And we've seen that in case after case from the Supreme Court. So taking the next logical step, if in fact, as the Supreme Court has said, marriage is a basic fundamental civil right, again, do you think Georgians should have been given the right to vote on any civil right for another citizen?
Well, honestly, I think we have to look just how our country was developed democratically, and that I think it's well spoken that we actually have lawmakers that make laws for us, and we have the executive branch that administer those laws, and we have the courts that try to uphold those laws. So a lot of times there are issues that come through the legislative branch. We are a Republican form of democracy in which we have representatives speak on our behalf, like we have in the Gold Dome behind us. So there are times when it's the legislators' duties to bring it through, and that if we had to vote on everything in this country, all we would be doing is going to the polls every day. That's the purpose of a Republican form of government. Our founders understood that every day we could be out there voting. We're not a one-to-one democracy. We have a republic. We have representatives that represent us, and they take the view of their constituents, and they then produce laws in our either here in Georgia or at the national office.
Well, one of the platform items that we keep hearing from NOM especially, and we hear it from groups across the country, is that the term activist judges continues to be tossed out. But by your very definition just a moment ago, you do recognize we have three co-equal branches of government, and that it is the judiciary branch whose responsibility to interpret the very laws that are passed. And Prop 8 was a law that was passed in California, and the federal judiciary has now gone on record saying that it was wrong and it's unconstitutional.
Yes, that was one judge's opinion, and you have to remember that even though we have three branches of government, it is not up to a court judge to decide what he deems as purposeful for marriage. So we do stand that we are not to have activist judges that decide that whether there's a law in place that was passed by people that they can come through and overturn what 7 million people in California deemed as that what they wanted for for traditional marriage, or for what they define as traditional marriage.
So it's safe to assume then your position is that you do believe American citizens have the right to vote on another American citizen's civil rights.
I think that you're trying to get me in a circle, and I'm here today to support traditional marriage. I think I made it very clear earlier that we are a Republican form of government, and there are times that, it is the function of our lawmakers to pass laws for the citizens of this country. And I'm not going to get in a circle on civil rights and what you're trying to trip me up on here. I'm here today to support traditional marriage.
All right, well, listen, let's move on to another question at this point, because listening to you speak today, one of the things that you spoke about were family issues. And, of course, what we've seen is states like Massachusetts, where after 7 years of gay marriage, we've actually seen the divorce rate fall. And some of the statistics that I believe we heard you quote today in your speech, aren't those based on single family or single parent homes versus two parent homes? And listen, there are plenty of surveys out there that are now showing that there really is no difference. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I'm here to say that studies show that when a child is with a mom and a dad in a home with traditional marriage, that's the better for them. Traditional marriage by design and by God's design is the best for kids. So, kids growing up, I'm not going to sit and say if they're growing up in a family with two men as their mom and dad, or two women, or whether they're in a single parent home. We know that statistics and studies show that when children are in a home with a mom and a dad, that is in the best interest of the child, and that is where they grow and where they flourish.
We saw the turnout today on the other side of the street, and then the folks that came out for you. There weren't many Georgians willing to come out for your side today. Why do you think that is?
Oh, I don't think that they weren't willing. They just weren't here. Obviously, we like to see people come out and support our side. But I'd like to say what was said today, that 70% of Georgians several years ago voted in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman. So whether they were standing out here today or not, they were at the polls and they voted in favor of that. And I know from the membership of our organization in our state and that we know that we support traditional marriage. So whether they're standing out there or whether they're not, we know by statistics and by voting what this state wants for the definition of marriage.
Well, thank you this afternoon. It's great talking to you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
This is Paul Schiffer at the Georgia State Capitol.